Hi, Pisces Sun and Rising. Welcome to your October 2022 Astro Update. It's Raina here. Ooh, so October. Well, we have some planets turning direct, which is always nice because that gives us a sense of forward movement. We've had quite a few planets retrograding at the same time. So it's not going to be where all the planets are direct, and also we're going to have Mars turn retrograde, but at least something is is moving forward. And we also have eclipse season kicked off, and some of you may feel these energies in September when I'm recording this, and even past November when the last eclipse of this year occurs. But in any case, this is the official date. So the month begins, or we could say on the 2nd of the month, Mercury goes direct in your opposite sign, Virgo. Mercury began its retrograde in September in Libra, and so that started in the 8th house for you, and it went back into the 7th house, and something is being resolved. Now, Mercury can involve paperwork, and the 7th house can actually involve legal matters. So that might be the settlement of some legal matter. The 7th house can be marriage, committed partnerships, or business partnerships are included here. So anything where you have to either sign papers to form a partnership or to dissolve one. And so, a divorce or a marriage license or a divorce settlement or whatever you call divorce decree or business arrangements. And because it's come from the 8th house, it might have to do with money. So if it's an inheritance, that could be it as well. I would say, yeah, it could be anything with legal ramifications, I suppose. But also, the 7th house can be public relations. And what's interesting about the 8th house is that it deals with metaphysical matters and also alchemy, personal transformation. So for some Pisces people, based on how what your persona is, how you project yourself onto the world, how other people perceive you, which could be the 1st house, could be that opposite to the 7th house. This can be how you reach out, even in a professional way, to have things happen for you. And the 8th house is that transformational process. So you may have been rethinking these matters and are ready to establish yourself in a new way. And actually, next year, you will be experiencing a transformation of sorts through eclipses in the sign of Libra. So that'll be very interesting for you. On the 8th, Pluto turns direct, and even though Pluto is a generational planet, its transits through different houses can have personal impact on life. And in this case, this has been in your 11th house of hopes and wishes, friendships, groups, associations, that you have socially. Or I think it could even be, professionally. But speaking of professions, this is a house of gains. And Pluto is associated with wealth as well, but also obsession. So this idea of how much money we earn sometimes is taken too far, and people do become obsessed with it, meaning that they lose sight of its true importance in life. So that's how I could interpret that. But it's like trying to balance these kinds of things, because there are people who can handle wealth. There are people who are not greedy and they can make a very nice living. However, as we know, there are also people that no amount of money that they make is ever good enough, and they also exhibit traits of grasping. There's a term in yogic philosophy called, I think it's aparigraha, and it means grasping or greed. That's what greed means, is grasping. So it's not about how much money you make. You could be a billionaire, but you could be a very generous person who is not attached to your wealth in terms of just like, everything you make, you have to just cling to. Like the miser is kind of like that in a sense. So, putting that in proper perspective, so that Pluto is powerful but not obsessive and power hungry. Also, so that when a planet turns retrograde, it turns on itself. Not it. Well, it shouldn't turn on itself like attacking itself, but introspective in a lot of ways. And with Pluto, it's about inner transformation. So another thing is with Pluto transiting the 11th house, there may be a desire to be influential among other people for some reason. Now, personally, I don't really understand why anybody would want that. But perhaps if that person wants to be a leader, then maybe that is important because they can direct people in a positive direction. But, like in the 11th house can be technology, like the internet, and they use that term influencer to describe a content creator on YouTube. And I always cringe at that. I don't know why anybody would want to refer to themselves that way, unless they feel powerless, and they want to be controlling or something. But yeah, I mean, the 11th house to me can be political reform or societal reform. And so maybe they have to have a figurehead, and that's the kind of thing that you would want to do. I don't know. I don't know how that would work. There might be times when that would be very important. I don't know how many Pisces people that would be appealing to. But, it's also your long range goals. And so perhaps you've had to kind of really be introspective about that and figure out why you want what you want. And now you are more clear on that and you can go after it in a much more powerful way. On the 16th, not the 16th, on the 9th, we have a full moon at 16 degrees of Aries. And of course, Aries is the first sign of the zodiac, so it follows you. If you think of the wheel as an eternal circle. And so that's the second house of earned income. So there you go. You have Pluto direct in the 11th in the house of gains, and then you have full moon in the second house of earned income. That might work for a raise, perhaps, something like that. And it can also bring an ending to a source of income. It can also bring awareness to your self-esteem. And that may be important as well when it comes to earning power, the power to influence others, the power to go after your dreams. On the 10th, Mercury goes back into that 8th house. And that's another area that will be affected by eclipses in 2023, although it already is affected because you've already had eclipses in Taurus. You've had a couple of them. So the one in particular that I'm thinking about was last November, because that was a lunar eclipse. So that meant that the sun was in the 8th house at that time. So that was directly opposing the sun in the 8th at that time. So yes, you've already had trigger to that area. Oh no, I'm sorry. No, that's in Taurus. That was in Taurus. No, that's going to happen in 2023. Sorry about that. But yeah, and what will happen is that you're going to this could have an influence on money as it relates to other people. And also in terms of your own transformation, really looking at personal power, because the 2nd house is self-esteem, but the 8th house is your personal power. And sometimes people base their self-esteem on outer things like, their income, depending on if the person has a sun in the 2nd house or what have you. But anyway, that's jumping ahead. Actually, this is the Mercury in Libra is about studying metaphysics, personal alchemy, the meaning, the modes of transformation. Shamanism is one route to that. Anything that has a theme of, I would say, personal responsibility, because it's about transformation. It's not about trying to control others. It's about how can I change, shape, forge myself into something that is better than it was before. So these topics, I mean, even astrology and the tarot can be 8th house matters. On the 23rd, we have Venus and the Sun going into Scorpio. Now, Scorpio rules the 8th house. So that theme of Scorpio is playing out not only in the sign that is the Sun is going into and Venus is going into, but also in the house of Libra, where in your chart is the 8th house. So it's kind of interesting. So for you, Scorpio is the 9th house. And this is Sagittarius house in the universal chart. So the themes of the 9th house are about expansion in all areas. If it's the mind, it can be the college level learning. So academia. It can be what we call higher learning, which doesn't just have to be academic. It can be on the wisdom level through any kind of spiritual discourse that you're involved with. This can be about traveling. So this is long distances versus local areas. And yeah, just the way that we approach life, even emotionally positive, the kind of expansive energy is very positive. Feeling like you're able, positive thinking is expansive thinking. So that's really a great influence. With Venus there could even be love with a foreigner. If you are traveling, you might have money for traveling. With Venus, there could be money. You're earning money through your travels. Maybe this is through some kind of job. but you have money for traveling, love, and enjoyment, pleasure. Maybe artistic. Maybe you're traveling to see a particular museum in another country, or you're going to study art in another country. And Saturn's going direct on that same day. So there's a lot happening on that day. Saturn is going direct after several months retrograding in Aquarius, the sign before you, the house that you rule, the 12th house. So Saturn, wow. That's the 12th house, that's the dark night of the soul. Although Pluto might give it a run for its money too in the 12th house. It's funny, you're going to have Saturn leaving that house in March. Probably will retrograde back into Pisces, I would assume, in 2023. But you're going to have it leave in March of 2023. But then you're going to have Pluto go into Aquarius the same month. So Pisces, you're really transforming at a deep level, aren't you? I mean, even karmically. Actually, that could destroy your karma, Pluto, in the 12th. So this is, Saturn is much more kind of like, to me, on the earthly level, asking you about those things that you need to be disciplined about concerning your habits. And now Saturn is direct, and perhaps you're going to really get disciplined about your spiritual practice. Pisces is one of those signs. I mean, I think of Pisces as the most spiritual and therefore psychic sign, but not necessarily disciplined, So you can be, it's like somebody who's naturally very artistically talented, but they're not necessarily disciplined. So they don't have much output, and therefore they kind of let their talents languish in a sense. You can be incredibly talented, but if you're not constantly or regularly doing your craft, someone else may not have your technical skill, and they still are honing their craft by simply doing it on a regular basis. So, that you can really benefit from establishing a spiritual practice at this time, because Saturn loves structure. Saturn is also preparing for the long haul, preparing for the future, not just in this moment. And if you establish yourself spiritually with spiritual discipline, it can affect all areas of your life in a positive way. On the 25th, we have a solar eclipse at 2 degrees of Scorpio. So again, in that 9th house, this can bring so many expansive opportunities for you. And this could this could carry you into 2023, where you're going to have another eclipse in Scorpio in May. But that time it's going to be a lunar eclipse. So between this time and May, in the next 6 months, think about the kind of things the seeds you want to plant. You have many opportunities in this area of expansion for yourself. And the 9th house is also publishing. If you're a writer, this can be very auspicious for those kinds of projects. On the 28th, Jupiter goes back into your sign. Oh, that's wonderful. I didn't think about that. And even though Jupiter is retrograde, expect blessings. Jupiter is your ancient ruler. So you have an affinity already with Jupiter, Pisces. And, this can, welcome Jupiter into your life right before Halloween. And what I would just say in general is be aware. Be aware of anything that seems like the universe is offering you a gift. And because sometimes, Pisces, I think, is a bit, not necessarily, I wouldn't use the word cynical, but perhaps you're not seeing the glass half full sometimes, and you may not see something that's right under your nose that is a wonderful opportunity. And maybe it's something that you kind of don't see the potential in, but it has like a lot to offer you. And, it's interesting because Jupiter rules the ninth house. So you have all this stuff happening in the ninth, and Jupiter is in the Scorpio season, and Jupiter is going back into your sign. So it could have those themes as well. On the 29th, Mercury goes into Scorpio, so Mercury joins those other planets in that ninth house. It can definitely have a theme of learning of some sort. Well, an example would be if you have been going back and forth over whether or not to study some kind of a discipline, spiritual discipline. You may think that you have what it takes already, and you may, but sometimes it's important to have the intellectual framework to fall back on. Like I was mentioning that yogic philosophy, and when I was studying Hatha Yoga to become a teacher, I didn't eventually become a teacher, but I was studying it. And we had to learn yogic philosophy alongside of the asanas or asanas. And the reason that is because if you don't have that philosophy and you can teach people how to do different yoga positions, it's kind of like divorced from the understanding of why you're doing what you're doing. It's not to say that it can't have benefit, but it still is incomplete, I would say, because there's a physical discipline and there's a mental discipline or philosophy. Physical and mental, spiritual, emotional. On the 30th, Mars goes retrograde at 25 degrees of Gemini. This is a fellow mutable sign, and this is going to be in your fourth house of home and family. Some of you may have been doing some kind of renovation in your home, and that might cease for a few months, and you might start to feel upset about it. Mars retrograde can indicate like inner turmoil or aggression. Remember that this too shall pass. There's Mars is going to go direct on January 12th, and maybe that will be the time when you can move forward in your domestic project. But and I guess I want to say too that in this particular case, it might not be that you are angry. It might just be that you are antsy about something, that you're kind of like impatient about it. But you have to respect divine timing. There could be something going on with your mother or family of origin, and that could relate to money with the 8th house being activated. So you're being warned in advance. I mean, even now as I record this, before the retrograde, you could be dealing with this matter with Mars direct in the 4th house. And one of the good things about astrology is that it can mirror something that you're already experiencing that you didn't understand the dynamics of. But with Mars in any house, I say stay above the fray, because other people may be trying to suck you in. It might not be that you're angry. They might be the ones that are angry, and they're trying to get you to fight with them. But you don't have to. You never have to fight anybody. You might have to be assertive. You might have to be brave, and Mars can be bravery, but it's not about being sucked into a lower vibration. Okay, that's what I have for you. I was going to say Mars. Oh my God. Well, it's the morning. Please forgive me. I woke up pretty recently. So I hope that this resonated with you, Pisces. If you would like a private reading, I'm promoting my double readings, which are a value, 2 full-length readings, and you can find out more information about those and my other readings at rainamoonastrology.com. The link is below. Thank you for listening. Take care. Bye.